Let me quickly introduce this history panel. Robert S. Norris is a senior research associate at the Natural Resources Defense Council, where he directs the Nuclear Weapons Data Book Project. He's a 20-year veteran of counting nuclear beans and the author of Racing for the Bomb, General Leslie R. Groves, the Manhattan Project's indispensable man. With Richard Rhodes, we are moving from Nobel Peace Prizes to Pulitzer Prizes. He won the Pulitzer Prize for The Making of the Atomic Bomb, also a National Book Award, a National Book Critics Circle Award, and his Dark Sun, The Making of the Hydrogen Bomb, was shortlisted for the Pulitzer. Finally, we have Jonathan Schell, who's a distinguished visiting fellow at Yale University Center for the Study of Globalization. He, of course, is the author of The Fate of the Earth, which received the Los Angeles Times Book Award and was nominated for the Pulitzer Prize. And chairing our panel is Carla Ann Robbins, the chief diplomatic correspondent for the Wall Street Journal. She was a member of 2 Pulitzer Prize-winning teams for the Journal, the 1999 Prize for International Reporting and the 2000 Prize for National Reporting. Thank you very much for joining us. Please give us a warm welcome to this discussion of the last 60 years. Carla Ann, take it away.
Thanks, Joe. As ever, this is just a really fabulous conference. What we thought we would do here is, because we love anecdotal leads in the news business and it's a way to get people to think about serious things in a fun way, talk to these 3 fabulous historians about the 3 moments that are defining for them, about when this all went off the rails, and then talk a little bit about the possibilities of bringing it back, particularly because we live in such dangerous times when it looks like we could end up having a lot more nuclear weapon states than we had ever hoped for. So we thought we would start with Stan, who's going to talk about the early 1960s first.
Thank you very much. As you can tell here, I have a serious cold, so I'll do my best to keep it short. My defining moment is December 7th, 1962. In the aftermath of the Cuban Missile Crisis, President Kennedy visited headquarters of Strategic Air Command in Omaha and toured the underground command post. His host that day was General Thomas Power, the commander-in-chief of SAC, from 1957 to 64, a protege of General Curtis LeMay, who at that point was Air Force Chief of Staff. Power reportedly spoke of a requirement of 10,000 Minuteman ICBMs and is known to have personally suggested that figure to President Kennedy. Of course, an eventual figure of 1,000 missiles was arrived at, and we could cite other examples from the Army and the Navy from their wish lists as well. My point is that as bad as the arms race was, it could have been even worse. We could have had 2 or 3 times as many nuclear weapons as we ended up with, and an examination of what actually did happen in the buying of all of those weapons, I think reveals that there was never really a convincing answer to the question of how much is enough, or any rational, logical way to determine it, and there still isn't today. Another point of my anecdote suggests that rather than a bad turn, that some restraint was imposed on the Air Force, in this instance, Secretary McNamara, who, in this instance and in many others, and even in Joe's remarks earlier today, citing President Kennedy, imposed some discipline at the Pentagon. Just a final point, that I think that in this period of the late 50s and the early 60s was the high point of, shall we say, military enthusiasm for nuclear weapons. LeMay, Power, and others throughout this period wanted a nuclear weapon for every conceivable mission. And but by a decade later, in the 70s, we begin a decline. And I think that it's largely because of the military that many of these weapons went away. We might pursue afterwards this military-civilian divide over the enthusiasm for nuclear weapons and ask whether it is an American phenomenon, which I think it is, or whether it might also be a phenomenon with other of the nation's militaries. Thank you.